Father, we do thank you for this day, and as we look at King Asa, help us to be willing in the final analysis to identify our fears and bring them to you. Help us just to see that even when you're one of the most powerful, it really comes down to the sovereignty of you, Lord. Unless the Lord guards a city, they labor in vain that guard it. Unless the Lord builds a house, they labor in vain that build it. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, just a quick recap. You remember we looked at David, and when he was confronted by Nathan the prophet, he repented, right? We all remember that story. His son, Solomon, also had trouble with women, and the scripture says that the Lord deliberately raised up adversaries or military opponents to rebuke Solomon. So in Solomon's life, the rebuke did not come specifically from words, although when you read his story, it does say God pointed some of this stuff out to him that he failed in. But here's the reason I bring up Solomon. One of the things that God said to him said that you're going to have an opponent from your own household. And all this was connected to Solomon's failure. If you remember, that person's name was Jeroboam. And if you read that story of Solomon, when Jeroboam opposed him, instead of Solomon interpreting that circumstance for what it really was, he tried to kill Jeroboam. Why do I bring that up? Because Solomon, for his wisdom, was not as wise as his father. He did not repent at the rebuke, okay? But then as this saga progresses, and we looked at Jeroboam, if you remember what happened to him, God revealed to him that he was going to have his own kingdom. It was going to be great. He was going to be at the top of it, okay? But what did Jeroboam do? If you remember, he was afraid of the citizens of his kingdom defecting and going back to Judah. If you remember that, he was afraid of losing his position and his life because of these people that were under him. They might choose to rebel. So, if you remember what happened there last week, God sent a prophet to confront Jeroboam. And Jeroboam saw three miraculous things in short order. One of the things he saw was an altar fall apart right in front of his eyes. The second thing he saw was when he gestured at the prophet, his hand was instantly struck with some kind of disease. And then to cap that off, Jeroboam asked the prophet to heal him, and God granted that prayer, so to speak, instantly on the spot. What did Jeroboam do? Here's what he did not do. He did not say, oh, okay, I'm sorry, God, I've been all along. Forgive me, let's pick this, see if we can fix this. He did not do that. He tried to negotiate with the prophet to get what he wanted. So we have these kings, and unlike David, every time they were confronted with their failure, they tried to avoid it, rationalize it, defend it, or stop it. That's the key takeaway, is that what do people do when God confronts them? And so now we go to King Asa. And if you will, turn to 2 Chronicles chapter 14, and we'll read the story of Asa.
That's not in chronological. There's a couple of kings.
I know, we're skipping them for now.
I know, but
right. Yeah, there's Rehoboam, and we're not going to talk about him at this time. So anyway, let's zero in on Asa, 2 Chronicles 14. 2 Chronicles 14, read along with me in verse 1. When Abijah died, he was buried in the city of David. Then his son Asa became the next king. There was peace in the land for 10 years. Asa did what was pleasing and good in the sight of the Lord his God. He removed the foreign altars and the pagan shrines. He smashed the sacred pillars and cut down the Asherah poles. He He commanded the people of Judah to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, and to obey his law and his commands. Asa also removed the pagan shrines as well as the incense altars from every one of Judah's towns. So Asa's kingdom enjoyed a period of peace. During those peaceful years, he was able to build up the fortified towns throughout Judah. No one tried to make war against him at this time, for the Lord was giving him rest from his enemies. Asa told the people of Judah, "Let us build towns and fortify them with walls, towers, gates, and bars. The land is still ours because we sought the Lord our God. He has given us peace on every side." So they went ahead with these projects and brought them to completion. One of the things you need to see here at this point, Asa is a perfect example of wisdom. By that I mean this. People tend to err on one of two sides. They tend to either be overly spiritual. Now, what do I mean by that? You see how Asa is devoted to God? He has a personal relationship. He walks with the Lord. That's what I mean. He has the spiritual base covered, so to speak. But he doesn't just stop there and expect God to magically run the place. He builds up these fortifications for these towns. And why is that important? Back in those times, it was up to every king to be what we call the president today, the commander-in-chief, right? Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief of all the U.S. armed forces. So what we see here is Asa exercising that role by strengthening these towns, because back in those times, the way you strengthened any town was you built a wall around it. Okay? You didn't defend it with cannons, guns, drone missiles, or so forth. You built a wall. And so that's what he's doing here. Okay? But you see that what Asa says, the land is still ours. God has given us peace. So Asa is this great combination. He's not just sitting in the palace waiting to hear a word from a prophet, which is good, don't get me wrong. He's not just doing that. He's rolling up his sleeves, giving orders to ensure the safety of the people he's responsible for. And so it says, and here's a key thing. I want you to keep in mind the chronology of his life. It said here at the beginning, there was peace in the land for 10 years. What we find when we go back to 1 Kings, and we're not going to go to it now, but I'll just let you know, he was a king for 41 years, okay? He was a king for 41 years. So in this first decade of his kingship, everything is going well. But now, let's see what happened from there. Keep reading with me, and we'll pick it back up in verse 8. King Asa had an army of 300,000 warriors from the tribe of Judah, armed with large shields and spears. He also had an army of 280,000 warriors from the tribe of Benjamin, armed with small shields and bows. Both armies were composed of well-trained fighting men. Once, an Ethiopian named Zerah attacked Judah with an army of 1 million men and 300 chariots. If any of your translations you're using, they may have a different number instead of 1 million, okay? Because the literal translation of that verse is simply thousands upon thousands upon thousands. Which, of course, if you multiply 1,000 times 1,000, you're going to get 1 million, if you look at it literally. But the whole idea here is the writer's trying to give you some idea of the scope of the man's military might. So they advanced to the town of Marishah, and so Asa deployed his armies for battle in the valley north of Marishah. Then Asa cried out to the Lord his God, "O Lord, no one but you can help the powerless against the mighty. Help us, O Lord our God, for we trust in you alone. It is in your name that we have come against this vast horde. O Lord, you are our God. Do not let mere men prevail against you." So the Lord defeated the Ethiopians in the presence of Asa and the army of Judah, and the enemy fled. Asa and his army pursued them as far as Gerar, and so many Ethiopians fell that they were unable to rally. They were destroyed by the Lord and his army, and the army of Judah carried off a vast amount of plunder. While they were at Gerar, they attacked all the towns in that area, and terror from the Lord came upon the people there. As a result, a vast amount of plunder was taken from these towns too. They also attacked the camps of herdsmen and captured many sheep, goats, camels before finally returning to Jerusalem. Have you ever heard the saying, "To the victor goes the spoils"?
Yes.
That's what happened here. In our time, when the U.S. and its allies prevailed in World War II, we didn't go through Germany stealing all these people's possessions and bringing them to the U.S. Back then, it was different. If you conquered the place, you took the people over as slaves, you took their possessions for your own. So that's what's going here. And what the writer's trying to make clear is really two things if you look at this and summarize it. Asa was severely outnumbered, was he not? This Ethiopian had an army of 1 million or more, right? Compared to Asa, basically, when you look at his numbers that I read, he had about half that amount. So his men were outnumbered 2-1. That's point number one. Point number two, by listing all this plunder, the writer's trying to show you that their victory was complete. In other words, the writer's trying to say they didn't just barely get the job done. They conquered this horde that outnumbered them. And so what we see once again is, what's Asa doing? He didn't just ask God to fix it. He prayed and then he acted. He prayed and then he acted.
He stepped out in faith.
He put shoe leather to his faith. Okay? When you read the story of Nehemiah, just as a little trivia on the side, and Nehemiah is trying to rebuild Jerusalem after the Israelites were taken to Babylon and then released. What you read in the book of Nehemiah is this: he posted a guard and prayed. It's the same combination. And here's the deal. That's what we wrestle with ourselves. We wrestle with the right combination of what do we ask God to do, and then how do we act on that. Do we sit? Do we wait? Do we do this? Do we do that? But so far, so good. He's doing everything right. Read on with me. Let's pick it up in chapter 15. Then the Spirit of God came upon Azariah, the son of Oded, and he went out to meet King Asa as he was returning from the battle. "Listen to me, Asa," he shouted. "Listen, all you people of Judah and Benjamin. The Lord will stay with you as long as you stay with him. Whenever you seek him, you will find him. But if you abandon him, he will abandon you. For a long time, Israel was without the true God, without a priest to teach them, without the law to instruct them. But whenever they were in trouble and turned to the Lord, the God of Israel sought him out and found him. During those dark times, it was not safe to travel. Problems troubled the people of every land. Nation fought against nation, city against city, for God was troubling them with every kind of problem. But as for you, be strong and courageous, for your work will be rewarded." When Asa heard the message from Azariah the prophet, he took courage and removed all the detestable idols from the land of Judah and Benjamin in the town that he had captured in the hill country of Ephraim. And he repaired the altar of the Lord, which stood in front of the entry room of the Lord's people. So, everything is going great. This man has been a king for 10 years. He's fought this huge battle. He won. And he's listening to what the prophet has to say. Question number one. Why is he listening to the prophet so well?
Say that again.
Why is he choosing to listen to the prophet so well? Because 10 minutes ago, I went to great lengths to try to show these kings who, when they needed to listen to the prophet, they didn't. This man, he's listening with both ears. My question is, why? What made him think differently at this juncture in his life than those men thought at that juncture in their life?
Maybe he wanted confirmation. that what he was doing was really what the Lord
Okay.
asked him to do.
Yeah, confirmation, certainty.
Yeah.
I'm precisely right. That kind of idea, right?
Well,
Some people are more filled. with-
Pardon?
Some people are more filled with the Lord too, so to trust
Okay.
him to do what he says.
Okay.
And he acknowledged the fact that it was God who exalted him to that high position.
Yes.
He wasn't there, he didn't get there on his own.
Right. I submit to you, one of the reasons is this. We tend to be more willing to listen to God when life is good. Sometimes,
I don't know about that.
well, it kind of can go either way. Some people start to ignore God in the face of great blessing, right? But some people become very attentive to God. They see God's hand working. This man prayed the prayer before the battle, right? He prayed the prayer for deliverance, and God said, no problem. So we tend to rely on God when God is giving us what we want.
I think it's because he had already had his heart toward God. So when the prophet came to talk to him, he was all ears because he had already turned his heart toward God
Mhm.
and asking for God to do that. Whereas the other men that you brought up,
Mhm.
they had already turned away from God.
Mhm. Right.
So when the prophet came, they was talking to speak to the hand instead of me listening to you.
Right. Right.
So I think that's what it is.
But yeah, he already
it's the
had,
heart to
Yeah.
begin with was already softened toward God.
yes, he already had a submissive attitude, okay? So when information came from God, he was in a proper frame of mind to receive it. All of these comments have a grain of truth in them. And I'm sure probably it all worked together. But the key takeaway is here, when he had a choice, he could have said, no, thank you, I've been doing this pretty good myself. Or he could listen, and he chose to listen, to his credit. Let's keep going. And I'm going to skip down to verse 11. On that day, they sacrificed to the Lord 700 cattle, 7,000 sheep and goats from the plunder they had taken in the battle. Then they entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart and soul. Here's what you call a revival. Everybody's gathered in the same place. Their hearts are in one accord. They're all agreeing on what their devotion should look like. So everything is going so well for him. Let's skip down now to verse 16. Skip with me to verse 16. King Asa even deposed his grandmother, Maacah, from her position as queen mother because she had made an obscene Asherah pole. He cut down her obscene pole, broke it up, and burned it in the Kidron Valley. So this man is even willing to draw a boundary line between him and his grandmother, or it could be his mother, and commentators don't really understand exactly the relationship there, other than it was a blood relationship. So he's willing to draw a line. You remember when Jesus said that our devotion has to be more to him than to our own family? Same idea here. And so King Asa, what he does here, he does not only try to lead the people as a group, kind of like what Robin says, this verse illustrates personally where his devotion was. Okay? So once again, he's doing everything very well. So,
How long is that going to continue?
do what?
How long is that going to continue that everything is going well?
Yeah.
It's fixing to change
I was
about the
gonna
next
say,
30
I'm
seconds.
waiting.
I know it's not going to last
Yeah,
long.
I'm like, okay, it
It,
is.
it never does. In fact, with all of these schemes throughout the Bible, it never lasts. It never lasts.
Because they're human.
There
They
you
are
go.
human.
That's right.
So, skip down with me to the last verse of chapter 15. So, there was no more war until the 35th year of Asa's reign. Keep in mind, like I said, let's review the chronology. He was a king for a total of 41 years. It says that the first 10 years there was peace, okay? And then if you back up to verse 10, back up to verse 10, the people gathered at Jerusalem in late spring during the 15th year of Asa's reign. So we have 10 years of peace. The next reference point is we have this 15th year, which leads us to believe that this battle with the Ethiopians, or some of your potentialists may say the Cushites, occurred somewhere in that year 11 to 14 range. Follow me? So that's what's going on there. 10 years of that. We have this huge battle. We have the revival in the 15th year. And now we hit fast forward and we go, there was no more war until the 35th year of his reign. So let's get the numbers firmly in front of us. Year 35, revival in 15. What's the difference in the math? 20 years, right? So what can we say? He had 20 years where things evidently weren't too bad. That's a good long stretch. I don't know that I've ever had, for 2 years without some kind of crisis. This man is on top of the world for a couple of decades. What could be any better? Donald Trump would love to be a president for 20 years. So let's pick up the narrative in chapter 16. In the 36th year of Asa's reign, King Baasha of Israel invaded Judah and fortified Ramah in order to prevent anyone from entering or leaving King Asa's territory in Judah. You need to get a mental picture of now of what's going on. You remember COVID-19?
Yes.
Do you remember struggling to buy toilet tissue?
Oh,
Remember the
that was
shortages?
so crazy, yes.
You remember the shortages? You go into, at least I remember going to Publix and the paper towel aisle would be empty. There were these shortages, right, due to the COVID-19, because what was happening there, we didn't have a military problem, but we had a biological problem. And so people were getting laid off, businesses were shutting down, logistics and trade were stopping. For people to survive, there has to be a movement of goods from people who produce it to the ones who need it. Follow me?
Mm-hmm.
And what's going on here with this blockade, we have what I call an economic siege. A military siege is when the enemy surrounds your city. You can't get out to get water, you can't get out to get food, they slowly starve you to death. You do it with swords and spears and soldiers. Here you have what's called an economic siege, where you have this blockade, and when you read the history of the region, it was a significant trade route. It's be like blocking Interstate 10 from all semi-traffic. So that's what's going on here. And the reason I'm trying to make this clear is we have to see it from Asa's perspective. So we have the king, and we have this trouble because trade is being interrupted, and people are going to end up suffering eventually. So what does Asa do? Asa responded by removing the silver and gold from the treasuries of the temple of the Lord in the royal palace. He sent it to King Ben-Hadad of Aram, who was ruling in Damascus, along with this message: let there be a treaty between you and me like the one between your father and my father. See, I'm sending you gold, silver and gold. Break your treaty with King Baasha of Israel so that he will leave me alone. Second question, out of all the choices that were open to him, why did he choose this one?
It was a peaceful remedy.
No bloodshed,
No bloodshed.
no battles, no spears.
Buy 'em off.
Right. Not only that, if you look at it, what I was trying to explain is he had basically what I would call an economic problem. No? He tried to solve it with economic measures. Why do I mean by that? he's going to give all this stuff from the temple to seal the deal. Okay? Let there be a treaty between you and me, like the one between your father and my father. See, I'm sending you silver and gold. So break your treaty with King Baasha, so he will leave me alone. He's trying to buy his way out of this. And it's a lot simpler to try to buy your way out of this problem than to fight it with soldiers. But that's what he's doing. Who is he doing it with? The king of Aram. Okay? This is a pagan king.
Sounds like today to me.
Do what?
Sounds like today to me.
Yes, it is.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about it.
Right,
You know, but
right, right.
I don't know.
So,
It's true. I do see that.
you gonna say something? So, he tries to buy his way out of this. So let's keep reading. Ben-Hadad agreed to King Asa's request and sent the commanders of his army to attack the towns of Israel. They conquered the towns of Ijon, Dan, Abel, Beth-Makkah, and all the store cities in Naphtali. Keep in mind, the store cities are where you have food and stuff stored. That's why that's significant there. As soon as Baasha of Israel heard what was happening, he abandoned his project of fortifying Ramah and stopped all work on it. Then King Asa called out all the men of Judah to carry away the building stones and timbers that Baasha had been using to fortify Ramah. Asa used these materials to fortify the towns of Geba and Mizpah. So, from King Asa, I think what he would say is here is mission accomplished, right? He got what he wanted. He got what needed to happen. Everything is going the way he wants it to go, okay?
But here's the hiccup. I don't get it. Here he's really close to God. He's taking stuff out of the temple.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary.
Yeah.
What was he thinking? You know, what was he thinking?
It's like you're robbing God.
Well, that's what I mean. I can't imagine.
Yes. No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. He's taking resources that had been given to the Lord, using them to solve his military
Right.
political
I don't
problem.
think God's gonna like that.
Let's keep reading. At that time, Hanani the seer came to King Asa and told him, because you have put your trust in the king of Aram instead of the Lord your God, you missed your chance to destroy the king of Aram. Don't you remember what happened to the Ethiopians and Libyans and their vast army with all their chariots and charioteers? At that time you relied on the Lord, and he handed them over to you. The eyes of the Lord search the whole earth in order to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. What a fool you have been. From now on you will be at war. And so King Asa fell to his knees and confessed.
Well, wait, buddy.
Not really, did he? Right. But this illustrates a disease that I have and you do too. It's called spiritual amnesia, where God has done something in our past, a great thing, a great deliverance, great guidance. He's done something tremendous. Time goes by. In this case, what did we say? About 20 years. Time goes by, and he seems to have forgotten all about it. And so he resorts to a method that God specifically prohibited to solve his problem. How did he get to be that way? Like you brought out, the man's heart was devoted at one time. How did he get to be this way?
Losing touch. Losing touch with God.
Yep. Okay. But specifically, how does that happen?
By not paying attention and praying and being with people, other people that really,
Depending on yourself
yeah,
to
well,
handle the things that you obviously cannot.
Right.
Or just complacency.
Yeah.
Complacency.
There you go.
That's it.
I would submit to you that little decisions with God ultimately add up to big decisions with God. The little decisions when life is going along, not too good, not too bad, you're just writing a check for another mortgage payment, no big crisis, life's not great, but it's not bad. But little decisions, little forks in the road, little nuances, eventually can add up to big decisions. Why? Because we all have a decision-making process. If you were going out to buy a car, you have a specific decision-making process that you use to buy that car. That's a huge decision. But you know what? When you go home today, you're trying to decide if you're going to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you have a process that you're going to use to make that decision too. Little decision, big decision, but the common denominator, we all, on any given time, for any given decision, have a process that we use to make that decision. And the thing with Asa is, whatever that process he was using for those 20 years ended up being the process that he used to deal with that king. Erosion does not happen an avalanche at a time. Erosion happens a pebble at a time. And so he did what he did. But the real tragedy is not that he had the alliance with the king. I submit to you the real tragedy is his response to the prophet.
Yes.
That is the problem. Read on with me. Asa became so angry with Hanani for saying this that he threw him into prison and put him in stocks. At that time, Asa also began to oppress the people.
Where are we? Where was
The
that?
next verse.
10.
Chapter 16,
Okay.
10.
verse 10.
Oh, okay, I was, all
16, verse 10.
right. Okay, I was on the.
Okay. So this is really the crux of it to me right here. All of us can fail. David failed catastrophically. Solomon failed little by little. Okay? But whether you fail catastrophically or little by little, the real tragedy is what happens when God confronts. And what we see here with Asa, just like Jeroboam and just like Solomon, he fails to handle the rebuke correctly. Not only does he put the man in prison, but he puts him in stocks.
Ooh,
You know what stocks are?
yes.
You remember? They would be
Pilgrims.
Because she did it and knocked everything around.
Yeah.
And then the stocks.
I recently read a book about prisoners of war in Vietnam.
Oh.
It was a book, and some of these men, these American soldiers,
Oh, I can't.
were incredible with what they endured. They would be interrogated, and what the North Vietnamese wanted them to do was to say the Vietnam War was wrong. It was the Americans' fault. They wanted to use them for propaganda purposes. So they would beat them for hours, then they would bring in their cameras, hoping for the American soldier to say what they wanted him to say. And so these American soldiers had to decide, how much torture can I put up with before I crack? And part of it was, for some of these soldiers, they would be put in stocks in a completely dark cement room with no light for months at a time. Can you imagine not being able to see the hand in front of your face for months? You have no idea what time it is. You know, what would happen is they would slide a little bit of food, which just might be the skull of a bird, for them to eat, trying to break their will for them to do what they wanted. The reason I'm making this so graphic is that this is what this God-fearing king did to this other human being,
To a prophet of God.
to a
Yeah.
prophet.
Yeah.
Think about that. It's one thing for me to walk out in the middle of Pastor Lloyd's sermon because I don't like what he's saying. It's another thing for me to strip him, lock him in a dungeon, and put him in stocks. That's what this king did. He didn't just stop there. Let's read the rest of that. At that time, Asa also began to oppress some of his own people.
Because they were saying, what are you doing?
Yes, yes. He could have been, we don't really know, but here's what we see, is that this man didn't just have the alliance with the pagan king, which I can kind of understand that, and we're going to talk about that more before we close. But the real tragedy here is what he does to the prophet of God and to his own people. He's starting to put his thumb and oppress some of his own subjects. The reason this is important, it shows you how much he has fallen.
Yes.
It shows you just how bad he was at this juncture in his life.
Yes. Makes me wonder what was going on. Well, no, I mean, in
Yeah,
his
right.
life, I don't know. I'm
Right.
just saying, we don't know, but
We don't
not
know.
that it makes it okay. It's just that I'm curious. That's all.
But let's go back to the alliance with the king. What prompted him to do that? You know what? He was afraid. Why was he afraid? Because this blockade was creating problems. If you remember, Jeroboam's problem was he had been given this revelation from God directly, but he was afraid of losing his position and his authority, right? He was afraid. Solomon was afraid of drawing a line and losing his wives. All of us in this room are afraid of losing something.
My mind. No, I was serious.
Was that about the one?
We can be afraid of losing our health.
Yeah.
For sure, we all can be afraid of losing our health. This king was afraid of his opponent. And instead of taking it to the Lord like he did 20 years prior, he tried to do it his way. But why did he try to do it with treaties? Because whether you're a king in that time or you're a king now, you get business done between nations with treaties, do you not? Free trade agreements, peace treaties, and it goes on, right?
Yeah.
So he took what I call the normal, conventional method to solve the problem. King A is creating a problem. I'll go to King B and try to get an ally here, and we'll bunch up together and deal with this guy. Typical way a king would deal with the problem. It's a typical problem. It's not an unusual problem. From Asa's point of view, everything in a way looked like business as usual, and he took the business as usual approach that any pagan king would do.
He turned from being a spiritual leader of the people to being a political
Yes.
leader.
Yes.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yes, and you use normal political means to do what you want to get done.
It looks like things haven't changed much over there, huh?
Yeah.
And then when you talk about him oppressing his people, we all know stories of Adolf Hitler. People who disagreed with him that were Germans got executed. Same thing. So here we have this man who was very unique in the beginning as a king. Now he's just like every other pagan king on the block, doing what every other pagan king does. Let's keep reading. Verse 11. The rest of the events of Asa's reign from beginning to end are recorded in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. In the 39th year of his reign, Asa developed a serious foot disease. Yet even with the severity of his disease, he did not seek the Lord's help, but turned only to his physicians. So he died in the 41st year of his reign. He was buried in the tomb he had carved out for himself in the city of David. He was laid on a bed perfumed with sweet spices and fragrant ointments, and the people built a huge funeral fire in his honor.
Burning him. No.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Or
thinking.
is it burning for him?
Exactly.
Yes, in his honor.
Yeah.
Just as one little side note, notice where he said he carved out a tomb for himself.
Yep.
I hate to say it, but I'm thinking of Donald Trump.
I knew you were gonna say
Donald
it.
Trump, what is it, the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts,
Yes.
where he wants to put his
Yeah.
name up there.
Yeah.
And when you read about Nebuchadnezzar and all these kings of the Old Testament, they all want to have their name go up in lights after they die.
Absalom made a
Yes,
shrine for
Absalom.
himself, a tower
Abs-
for himself. I don't have any sons, so this is my
Yes.
memory.
They want to build a monument for themselves. And Asa, once again, this closing statement shows how totally he had conformed to being a king of the world, a typical pagan king,
And
doing what every other pagan king does,
If you contrast that with David,
right?
who, what he did was he collected all the money and the gold and silver that this guy gave away. David had collected all of that. So his memory was collecting everything for his son to build the temple with.
Right,
Because God wouldn't let him build the temple, so he supplied all the stuff and the plans for the building,
right.
everything.
Right.
That was his memory. That's what he was
Yeah.
doing. And
A
so he
monument
was
to
doing
the
it
Lord.
for the Lord, whereas
He's doing
Right.
it for himself.
others do it for
No.
themselves.
David wanted his lasting legacy to be that temple.
Yeah.
Not a monument to himself.
Which is why he is
Still remember.
God's favorite.
Yes.
Well, let's look at the chronology again. What we see here is that in the 39th year of his reign, he developed a serious foot disease.
I don't know what that was.
They don't really
Never
know
seen
what
it.
it was.
I know, but
Some commentators think it was gout,
Oh,
which was very common then,
okay.
but they don't know for sure. But once again, it says in the 39th year of his reign.
Yeah.
So we see this battle in the 36th year. We see the confrontation happen shortly after. Another couple of 2-3 years goes by, and then he gets the foot disease, okay? And then, as the writer says, he did not seek the Lord's help, but turned only to his physicians. What's the connection here? When he had the problem with the bad king, he didn't ask God, he just tried to construct a treaty. When he had a problem with the bad foot, he went to the doctor, but he didn't go to the Lord. Do you see the connection? Every time this man has what I would call a normal problem, he tries to use only the world's way to deal with it. Obviously, there's no condemnation in going to doctors, right? But as the writer says, that's all he did. Do you remember what I said at the very beginning of his reign? When he was devoted to God, but yet he was trying to reinforce his own towns, his own kingdom. Remember that? You remember how I said that was a great balance? If you look at what happened to him in these two instances, he lost that balance. And he just went to the world's way, and he left God out of it altogether. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That was his problem. His problem was not so much that he shouldn't have tried different ways to solve the problem. His problem was he did not ask God how to solve the problem. Because God can solve problems any way he wants. In fact, God may have authorized him, and there's other stories in the Bible where you see the good guys, the people, the kings of Judah, actually having allies with pagan kings, but it's sanctioned by God. You see what I'm saying? So his problem was not that he went to the doctor. His problem was not that he went to the king. The problem was that he left God out of the equation altogether. And the tragedy is this. Let's go back to what you said about wanting confirmation. How much more confirming than you can get than having a prophet look you in the eyeball and say, this is what you did wrong.
Yeah.
That's pretty certain.
Yeah,
That's pretty precise.
Right.
How certain can you get? But he rejects it entirely and locks the guy away. How do we come to think that way?
Do you think that seer just sat there and said nothing? I bet he was probably praying to God and letting the guards hear him.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going, how in the world can that man
Right,
be thanking his Lord for putting him
Yeah.
in this position?
right.
Well,
Right.
you know, I'm doing what you called me to do. I bet those are the ones that the guards probably
Yeah.
got together and said, did you notice that guy? Next thing you know, there's a little grumbling and people are getting
Yep,
under the thumb.
Yeah,
under the thumb.
You just wonder.
Yep.
yeah.
Right.
So he may have pulled a Paul and Silas.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you wonder.
but I think, since I am old,
Hey,
that life, no, I just think life takes over, and you have to have, I say you, we, me, have to have a constant, you have to guard against the world coming in. And sometimes, in some people's life, you can get away from it because of life's events, and the older you're not as you used to be. And I don't know, I'm just saying my observations here, but I think that be part of it, I do not know.
Sure.
And, but having been through last week, I was just crazy, and I kept saying, Lord, what are you trying to teach me? What are you trying to teach me? It was probably trying to teach me to get on with it and quit. But I was just questioning him. But I'm just saying, I think when you're young, you're idealistic and you can do this and you feel strong and da-da-da-da-da. Because a move like I had probably when I was in my 20s would have been nothing.
Right.
But a move at this age was a lot.
Right.
Now that's my experience.
Right.
I'm not saying that's his, but that's just an
Right.
observation.
Well, I think what you're saying is you get older, things that used to be easy become
Yes,
hard.
exactly.
I call it perceived effort.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
takes a lot more effort to mow the
Yeah,
grass now than
it
it did
does.
30 years ago.
And to do a lot of things, you
Right.
know, whatever it
Right.
does. But I'm just saying we have to be spiritually vigilant. However,
Right.
that being said, God had me hemmed in, and this is no joke. The man that was the head of the storage unit is a pastor, Christian. What else? Let's see. The guy that is the owner of my duplex is a Christian. The boys that came to unload the truck are strong Christian boys. I mean, it went on and on. So he had me hemmed in. It's like trying to get away. No, I'm saying I looked at that because I was so, where are you trying to take it?
Right. Right.
Now that's my experience with that kind of thing because I had a lot of fear.
Well, that's the deal. When you look at Jeroboam, he made a bad decision out of fear.
Right.
When you look here at Asa, he made a bad decision
Yes.
out of fear.
Yes.
The thing is our biggest battles are on the inside,
That's right.
not the outside.
That's right.
And these two kings, even though they had all the resources of a king behind them, their own fear still
Doesn't matter.
conquered
You can have a
them.
million, it's not
Doesn't
here.
matter.
It's all here.
Yeah.
you think they're, you know, and it's just like
Yeah.
us. You have to look at your testimony.
Yes.
Lord, look what you did before. Wait a minute, what? I need to look at what you did
Yes.
before.
Exactly.
You know what you did, you know, and I think that's the thing. The king just didn't, well, if God did it before, why wouldn't he do it again?
I know.
Why do I have to rely on me?
Well, he had a lot of friends telling me that. So I was like Moses. I can't, you know, like, okay, they have to keep telling me now. Damn this, damn that. I know.
One other little connection to make here, if you look back in chapter 15, in verse 1, when it talks about the Spirit of God came upon this guy named Azariah, if you look at what Azariah said, he's trying to get Asa to remember how bad things were in the past, right? He's trying to get him to remember. Key point. Because then when after he makes the treaty, the second prophet comes, the second prophet says, don't you remember what happens to the Ethiopians?
Maybe he has dementia.
What
I
I'm
don't
trying to
know.
say
Maybe
is
he
here
does.
is this. that first prophet, his message was based on the idea of I'm warning you to remember.
Right.
If I were to summarize it, he was saying, pay attention because I'm warning you to remember how bad it was. Follow me?
Mm-hmm.
The second prophet comes to him and he's saying, I'm giving you a warning to remember how good it was. Right? Remember how you won. That is the deal here. If we were to really get to the core of this man, it has to do with memory. And remembering two things. How bad it was when we lived like this. How good it was when we lived like that. And here is why this is important. When your greatest fear hits, you know what your greatest weapon is? Your own memory. When your greatest fear hits, your greatest memory or your greatest fault can be your own memory. I don't need to memorize 67 verses when I can't get a cancer diagnosis, because I really probably already know those verses just like you do, right? You know what I need to remember is how those verses played out. I need to remember what happened. And that is the challenge. When fear is the most out of control, what do I remember? And so that's what happened. But there's one more trait besides memory we need to put under a magnifying glass here. And you know what that is? Stubborn. The prophet came, he rejected it, the foot problem came, he still just dug in his heels and wouldn't change. Which brings me to the problems that all of us know about old people.
Watch it.
They have two problems. Memory and stubbornness. No?
We're all around the other person.
How many old people do we know that we characterize, oh, they're just so stubborn?
Well, some aren't.
I love it.
So that is the example of Asa. Watch your stubbornness and pay attention to what you remember.
Yes.
Because those two traits can dramatically alter the entire trajectory of your old age. Because when did this happen to this man? In the 39th year of his reign. Not in the first 10. One more connect the dots. David, Solomon, Jeroboam, Asa. Their biggest challenges came not when they were young men, but when they were older men.
Because you change. Your brain changes. Your emotions change. You're not the
Everything
same.
changes. You're not the same.
The
You
man
don't,
today is not the same as years ago.
no.
Maybe that's a good thing. Well, in some ways it is, but no.
The deal is this. With Asa, no matter how great your past was, it does not guarantee you a great future. No matter how great your past was, it does not guarantee you a great future. That great future happens how? A little decision at a time. A little decision at a time. A little decision at a time.
But we become worn down by things.
Uh-huh.
Our health.
Yep.
Not that God doesn't, I don't mean that. I just think you know, it's like erosion, okay?
Erosion. Mhm.
And not that I don't trust, I do.
Mhm.
But my strength of will and whatever, you know, it gets eroded. And I think that's what we talk about all these people,
Mhm.
you know.
We give in instead of fighting
Yeah,
for.
it gets, sometimes you're like, oh, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I still love the Lord, but you just get eroded by the.
Yes. Yeah.
And I tell you, I had a week where one more thing, I had everything lined out, got it, and that day, I'm not kidding, just little, but it was, I was like, now wait a minute, what are we doing here? I was asking God, but he didn't explain, so I don't know. I'll have to ask him when I get to him.
Oh, there's a lot of things I wanna ask him.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, as an older person, these are everybody has a different story. That's mine, and
Mhm,
if
sure.
you didn't want to hear it, close your ear. No,
But
it's just
I say one thing about
Sure.
change. Change is not always a bad thing.
that.
No.
Because I want to tell you, if it wasn't for change, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
That's right.
Yes, that's the whole thing with all these characters. You can get better, you can get worse. Just don't have the illusion that you're not changing,
Well, that's true.
because you are.
Yeah, we think we stay
We think we're
status
static.
quo,
Yeah.
but we're not.
No.
No,
We're either going up
right?
or we're sliding,
Yeah.
and it can be such small increments
Yes.
that we do not
Right.
even know it. Nobody stays on the same plane.
No, they don't. Nobody stays in the same plane. I'll pray and we'll get on. Father, I just ask that you would help us to remember the example of Asa, good and bad. That you would help us to strike that balance between paying attention to you and knowing when it's time to roll up our sleeves and act on what we prayed for. And I just thank you for your word, that it is a light unto our feet and a lamp unto our path. In Jesus' name, amen.